Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video. It's Stars and Hexagons, but the name of the video is Bring On the Hand Stitch Star Quilt. The quilt pattern comes from the American Patchwork, which is a Better Homes and Gardens publication, April 2022, page 44. This is a picture from the magazine of the quilt, and that you can tell it's folded up. It is going to be a work of art when we ever get it finished, but you can make it any size that you want to once you've got the basics. And so today what I want to do is do some cut and count, and then do some sewing to join the stars, and that'll put you right on the right track for part 2, which will be where we join the columns of stars to actually start building our quilt. And I'll show you samples of all of this in this first video. Hang on. Okay, the first part we're going to start with is the hexagons, and get those out of the way. And these are made with muslin fabric because it's very flexible, that when you start working with it, it will fit the way that you want it to fit in your columns. So the first thing I did was I made a hexagon template, and that would be based on the diamond. That's the only two parts in here, and I tried to see how it would actually fit together. I got that out of the magazine, of course, and I looked at it and I said, well, there's one, and they overlap, and then that one overlaps. So it'd be a good experiment to make your own from a diamond that you have to making your own hexie. So then what I did is, it worked well. I folded this so I had 4 layers at a time, because what you're not going to need is 210 of those. But it can be done. It can be done. I don't like to do all these big parts at one time, so I would do enough to get started and just to see how it would cut. But mostly we're going to look at the star in a minute. But when I'd get it laid out, then I'd take and I put these, and I'm going to make a honeycomb looking effect. And I use a mechanical pencil and go around it. Make sure you get it nice and neat. The neater you are with all of this cutouts, it's great, the better. Now, the hexagons, you do want to mark each one of them, and it's simply a matter of making a dot, and you can use your mechanical pencil. These were made with a small hole punch. There's a smaller than a regular, but you can also use a nail and a hammer and do those holes. But the first one of each one of your sets you'll have done already, but then you'll have to do the others. And once I get it built all the way across, then I come back and I start building the next one. And so I would build a row, and then I'd cut off a row and build a row. But all along, you're going to find out I was using my cut and count sheet because I needed 210 hexagons, and I didn't want to go way over, and so I wanted to hit it pretty close to it. And you are going to mark each one of those. That takes care of the one part, and you don't have to do that at the very beginning. Here are 2 samples of stars, and if you can see, I've got lights and dark put together. That's the way I chose to do it. In the book, she actually did her 6 diamonds, and she would make each one a different color, or she made 2 the same or 3 the same to make those, because hers is a really scrappy, neat quilt. So if you have a lot of pieces of fabric, you can put those together. And so I pulled together a stack that I was going to cut from. That's this one back here in the back. And I thought, oh, that's really going to knock it out. And I started making 2 at a time, 2 stars cut out at a time. Then I jumped to 4 stars, because you've got to get up to 105. That doesn't sound as bad as the 210, but you've got to have six pieces for each one. So how I attacked that was, again, I laid out my fabric, and this time I laid out my lights, 2 layers of light, and then I had my 2 layers of dark, and put them on there. All right, and you may have another way, but this is the one I did, and I was able to keep up with it. And then I put the dark light on top, and I came in and I made those. Now here again, every one of these don't have to be marked unless you just want to. But I found that if I marked the lights, I'm going to make 2 sets right here. So I wanted 4 of the sets, I think. We'll see in a minute. You'd think after I did that many, I think you do them and then you forget them. I'll just go ahead and do one more out here. But there I've got mostly what I need marked for part of those. All right. Then I took my scissor, and you could use your rotary cutter if you're real careful. I just didn't want to waste any material messing up some. And I'm going to cut 2 and show you how I put them in groups. And it really made my life easier. And you'll see it, because this is a project that has traveled through my house, including all the little strings that are here. All right, I've got 2 sets cut. And now here's what I did, is I took 1 light and 2 darks. That made half of one. And then I took 2 lights and 1 dark. And that is going to make 1 star. And so when I cut out those other 2 in there, after I had the 4 sets, well, I was able to make 2 stars, because I've got 2 extra pieces. I've got some more that I've got marked to cut. And I would put these together, and I already had these marked. And all I need marked is the top of each one of these sets. And for the dark ones, I had found a fine point super permanent ink from Sharpie, and I really like that. And so I'd lay that on there, on that top one, that dark one that I need in that set, and I would just go through and put my dots in there, and it's ready to go. Now I just used my pencil when I was doing the light one. That would make a set. I just turned them and pinned them and put them in a stack, and I'll show you that stack. Moved from the cutout room into a living room area, and this was a great place because I had room to set out my pieces, and I found out that I wanted to be able to see the colors of my stars. And so after I had a nice 20 or 30 stars, and I thought, well, I'm going to start trying to put the columns together to see if I really like this before I keep going. And so you can see that I've got my stars laid out, and then here's how far I've gotten. I've got 3 columns put together. You actually sew 1 column, and then you add them to them. The way it goes is that there's 10 stars in 1 column, there's 11 in the next, 10 in the next, and it keeps alternating back and forth. So then, I'm a movie watcher, so I moved over, and here's where my setup is. And I've got my stars that I've picked for my next column, so I don't have to hunt for those. I have my hexagons for my columns and my thread. And at the end of the 11 star columns, or one of the 2, there's going to be an opening, and you're going to have an extra diamond that you're going to sew into that one. And mostly, I just wanted to get you started, give you an idea of a neat project. And if, like we were talking about a lot of fabric and everything. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go show you how I put together my stars. And what we want to do is I've got my 6 pieces, and I have them grouped together. So I'm going to leave one set sit there, and I'm going to pick up the light ones because that'll be one you can see. And the light top is going to have the dark bottom to it. So I'm going to take and set those together. I think I am. And you can pin it. It's at first when you're starting, then after a while you'll probably figure out that you won't have to. If you're not sure about a 1/4 inch seam from dot to dot, take your ruler and initially just take and draw a pencil line through there. And then after a while, you're going to have a good idea about what 1/4 of an inch is going to look like. So now what I'm going to do is I've doubled my thread because this is going to be hand sewn and I want it to be strong. I've got nice thread that will slide through. I have a sharp needle. I'm going to go in at my first dot. This is like dot to dot. I usually sit in the chair and anchor it on my knee. All right, and if you want to, you can go back through there one time to anchor the first, and then you're going to be ready to start. And what you're going to do is you're going to go down in. You'll feel the needle at the back of your finger, then come back up, go down and come up. And at first you probably would like, depending on your experience, you do 1 or 2 stitches. 2 stitches helps you to make it a little straighter. And you're going to go down in. I can feel the pin again. And I come back up. And the thing about this is you're going to sew 3 diamonds together for one side and 3 diamonds together for the other, and then sew those together. Now I did find out, and I kind of like this, it was sort of like a treat, that I could do that part, that seaming the 2 sections together on my sewing machine, and it turned out really nice. The main thing is to take and anchor it at the center of the 2 pieces together, because that's going to be the middle point. Use a pin and then stitch it on your sewing machine. There, I've got it going pretty good for looking through the camera. And I'm going to do it again. And eventually you'll get where you can probably get 3 or 4 depending on your needle and how sharp it is. And you can run it all the way through to the other side. It doesn't take long. Didn't take long to get myself a nice stack of, and that one's a knot, so he's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to leave him right in there. All right, and I'm going to double run through that twice, and then it's ready to cut off. Now, is that the prettiest one I ever made? No, but you get the point. And when I turn it over, I can see all my little pieces of black where I picked up. And I probably, sitting down, I would have picked up more threads as I went through there. But the main thing is to get it so it's nice and sturdy. And then when you open it up, you've got the beginning of your first star. And then what I do is I've got that one. Then I'm going to take the other dark one that goes on this part. I'm going to lay it up against this part. And now I'm going to turn it over because I want to see my dot to dot. And there's my one dot. And there's my other one. I'm going to pin it. And I'm going to start again. And I'm going to travel from that dot over to the dot at the same area over here. And when I get that done, let's pretend like this is my line that I did. And when I open it up, I'll have my half. And usually when I got a little pile done, then I'd go and I'd press those so they were laying flat. And the one thing that I did like was when I pressed it from the back, I folded the seams out. And that makes it really easy to find the dot where you want to join the two sections. And what I'm talking about there is, here's one that's finished, and if I close it up, you can see where I have my sides ironed out and that side ironed out. And then I came up here to the top, and you can see it and you can almost feel it. And I looked for where the point was here and on the other side and pushed it through. And then I was ready to go over on the sewing machine, and there's a lot of give in there, so it's really nice to lay it flat and stitch that. And that was sort of like your present for getting the other parts done. And then you open it up, and most of the time they're pretty close. And don't beat yourself up if they're off a little bit, because when you get all of these stars on that quilt, it's so overwhelming and beautiful that you won't see those little things. But the more you do, the better you'll get. And here's another one that I did. And you can see that I hit right on the mark, and I had done exactly what I said. So let's travel back over and look a little bit closer at that quilt. Okay, we've come back over here to the quilt, because I wanted you to see it a little bit more up close. But also I wanted you to see, look how the colors, it doesn't matter. And the light and the dark really worked well, but you don't have to do that. You can put any colors that you want together to get it to work. And as a preview, because what I'm going to do in the next video, because this one will take a while to get enough pieces together, is look at making the columns and which is adding in the hexagons into those. But if you have ever hand stitched, you know how much fun it is. If you've never hand stitched, this does not have to be a big project. You can start and make your column any length you want and make as many columns as you want. And you'll have something really pretty if it turns out to be a table runner or a runner for a bed at the foot of the bed. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you enjoy this project and give it a try. If I've forgotten anything or need to add things, I'll put them in the description. And part 2 will be another video, but I'm going to start putting the columns together. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit like and come back.